Hello, I'm Dr. Alveda King, Director of African American Outreach with Priest for Life. I am recording this on my iPhone and posting it on YouTube because there's a lot of discussion right now about race in America. This is 2013, and there are many historical anniversaries this year. You know, there's been 150 years since the passage of the Emancipation Proclamation. There have been 50 years since the I Have a Dream speech by my uncle, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and the historical March on Washington. 40 years since the March for Life began. We've also had the Trayvon Martin, George Zimmerman controversy this year. So there are so many different things that are happening in this very historical year of 2013. And I've been talking about many of those issues, and you can find me on YouTube or on my blog at AfricanAmericanOutreach.com talking about many of these issues and historical moments. And you hear me reference many times that we are battling with a three-headed monster. And I'll show you a picture of that in a moment. I'll try to flip the screen and turn it over and let you see that. But as we talk about that three-headed monster that's impacting the human family, that's racism, reproductive genocide, sexual perversion, and the discussion is taking many swings and many turns. So I thought it would be appropriate to discuss that, to show you the diagram of this three-headed monster. Now, the results of why we have this and what the three-headed monster is doing to impact our society. If you look at racism, that's different communities on the planet Earth saying that we are separate races. For instance, you think you have the white race or the Caucasian race, the Black race in America, the African American race, the Latino race, the Asian race, the Native American race. We're not separate races. Acts 17:26 says, of one blood, God made all people to dwell on the face of the earth. And since that is the case, we have to be the human race. My uncle, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in the 20th century said, we must learn to live together as brothers. And in this century, I add, and sisters, or perish as fools. If we're going to be brothers and sisters, we have to be members of the same human family or the same human race. Acts 17:26. Now, when we deal with issues of racism, the racists will say, okay, God, you said be fruitful and multiply. I might be fruitful and multiply, but only if they're my color, only if they are my race. That goes against God's plan for his human family that he created. And of course, Jesus Christ has told us that we must love one another. And Jesus said that agape love, God's love, is the greatest commandment. Love ye one another. And then we have reproductive genocide. And that's when people say, well, God, you said be fruitful and multiply. We're not doing that. And if our women get pregnant, we're going to help them find ways to not even have the baby, even if it kills a human baby in the womb of the mother. So we might be fruitful and multiply, but only when we want to and when we are ready. And then sexual perversion, of course, fornication, and that is sex outside of the natural holy matrimony ordained by God, where children can be conceived, and in pregnancy with a man and a woman contributing seed and an egg in the womb, and for 9 months the baby's going to live there and then be born. But with sexual perversion, the natural holy matrimony is kind of kicked out because fornicators are not going to be married as one man and one woman raising children. Adulterers are going to mix that up and muddy that up. And then even the same-sex sexual union, that will affect that model as well, because two men cannot procreate. They can't be fruitful and multiply if they have sex. Two ladies cannot be fruitful and multiply if they have sex. And that is the issue there. So we're looking at these three entities that come against God's mandate to be fruitful and multiply. The human trafficking is involved in that. There are so many things that are involved in that model of sexual perversion that's not going to let that one man and one woman marry and procreate in a loving environment, not an abusive environment to each other or to the children they conceive and that are born. So this three-headed monster says to God, you said be fruitful and multiply. No, we're not doing that, God. And so that's where we came up with this concept of the three-headed monster. Now, I'm going to try to do something here with technology, and I'm probably not real good at it, but we're going to try to show you that picture. And if not, you can find it on www.africanamericanoutreach.com. The three-headed monster picture is there. But I'm going to try to pull that up off of my computer screen. I have a picture of that three-headed monster here. Of course, being fruitful and multiply, loving one another as brothers and sisters, members of the human race, valuing life and procreativity with no reproductive genocide, with harmful contraceptives or abortions or that kind of thing, no sexual perversion with the human trafficking and all of that, the adultery, the fornication, or same-sex unions and that kind of thing. So we just want to look at and be informed. Of course, now, Jesus did say over in the book of Matthew, some are born eunuchs, some are made eunuchs, some choose to be eunuchs. And eunuch, according to the Hebrew interpretation of that word, doesn't just mean castration, because you cannot be born castrated. And so there will be people who perhaps are born with no natural desire for the opposite sex, no natural sexual desire for the opposite sex. But if we're going to accept that the real purpose for human sexuality is procreation, then we have to look at that. And then people say, well, God made me that way, so he must have wanted it to be that way. Not necessarily so, any more than God wants people to have high blood pressure or sugar diabetes or any heart disease or so many other things. And so Jesus went about healing the sick and forgiving people of their sins. And so we have to kind of study that, and we'll be talking about that a little more. So I just wanted to share the three-headed monster concept with you. Please visit www.africanamericanoutreach.com so that you can see that picture. And I've written on the subject. You can probably Google that out there somewhere. Have some things at africanamericanoutreach.com blog. All right. Thank you for listening. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes on him shall not perish, but have everlasting life. God bless you, Dr. Alveda King.